This week's challenge was a quote that is often attributed to Ghandi, where he may have said something like this: "I like your Christ, I do not like your Christians, they are so unlike your Christ." Now, the question that Amy posed was, how do you use this to start a good conversation? And of course, you know our approach to Stand to Reason is not to always start with statements or our defense, but number one, start with questions. So my first question in response is going to be, well, what do you mean? What do you mean by that statement? And then I'm going to sit back and I'm going to listen patiently. I'm going to listen non-defensively, and I'm going to try and be as gracious as possible. Because I think behind these kind of quotes often are not rational objections, but emotional objections. And so you want to sit back and listen and see if you might not hear a story of how someone was hurt by a Christian, and see if there's not an emotional objection that's kind of lurking in the background. So start with a question first, and then just really listen. And it may be that the skeptic, the person who brings up this objection, may just need a Christian to listen maybe for the first time and hear their hurt and their pain, and then you can proceed on this. Now, a second question you could ask is, well, what follows from this? What conclusions do you draw from the fact that maybe there are a lot of Christians who are hypocrites or Christians who don't live like Christ? What conclusion would follow from that? Because we know rationally nothing significant follows in terms of the truthfulness of Christianity. Okay, so Christians are hypocrites or Christians don't follow the teaching of Christ. Does that mean that Christianity is not true? Does it mean that what Christ taught wasn't true? No, of course not. And so thirdly, what you can do is then move towards this objection and say, you know what, I agree. I agree that there are Christians who are hypocrites. I agree that there are Christians who don't follow Christ. Guess what? I'm one of them. I'm one of these Christians that you're talking about. In fact, Jesus taught this. Jesus taught that we're going to be failures. We are sinners. He says, I didn't come for those who are healthy, but I came for the sick. I didn't come for the righteous, but I came for the sinners. He says this in Mark chapter 2. And so even Jesus, in his teaching, gave us an expectation that we ought to expect that there are going to be his followers who are hypocrites, who don't follow his ways perfectly. And so I'm a hypocrite, but guess what? You can go to anybody in any religion and find hypocrisy in their lives. It could be a Muslim, it could be a Buddhist, it could be a Mormon, you could find an atheist. You could find, yes, a Hindu, and you will find hypocrisy in their lives. That is the state of humanity in its fallen state. We are hypocrites. We are sinners. In fact, Ghandi himself taught things that he didn't follow. He taught about chastity. He was a big proponent of chastity, even in marriage. And yet when you look at his life, he was known as a womanizer. And there's all kinds of issues regarding sexuality that surrounded him. So Ghandi himself did not even follow his own teaching. So yes, we're all hypocrites. We're all sinners. And now you've got a great entry point into the gospel. That's the bad news. The good news is that not only did Christ teach a moral life and how we ought to live it, but he recognized we wouldn't be able to live that life. We wouldn't meet the standards of perfection. We would fall short of the standards of the law, and therefore we need a Savior. We need Jesus to rescue us from all this hypocrisy, from all this sin. So what a great entry point into the gospel. And then lastly, I think we can talk about all the good that Christianity has done, how Christian followers, Christ followers, people who do follow the teachings of Christ have done great good. And we could make the argument they have done some of the greatest good the world has ever known. And a couple good resources on this is the book by Bradley Wright, a sociologist, Christians Are Hate-Filled, Hypocrites, and Other Lies That You've Been Told. It's a great resource. The work that the sociologist Rodney Stark has done on just the great good that's come from as a product of Western civilization, well, even Western civilization itself, because of the influence of Christianity and Christians. And so we could point to the great things also that Christians have done. So that's 4, I think, solid responses to this objection, and so we have answered another objection. See you next time.